Okay, let's get started. Paige, can I ask you to take the roll, please?
Certainly. Beginning with Marilyn Alvario, Ramon Arroyo,
Present. I was on mute.
Corey Betts, Andrea Comer,
Here.
Fabian Durango, Avery Gaddis, Subira Gordon, Michael Jefferson, David Lehman, or his designee, Kyle Abercrombie,
Here, thank you.
Melissa McCaw, or designee Jeffrey Beckham, Ojala Naeem,
Present.
Edwin Shirley,
Here.
Kelly Valeras, Joe Williams,
Here.
and Sean Wooden, or designee Christine Shaw.
I believe we have a quorum. And I apologize.
Andrea, sorry I'm late. Paige, sorry I'm late. David Lehman's here.
Sorry.
But I see my better half, Kyle, was already represented for us, so that's good.
Here.
And Councilman Betts has just joined as well. Okay. So good morning and welcome to the council members, state leaders and team members, and the public. As always, we appreciate you joining us. Since this body last met, the council and the SEC team have made progress in a number of areas, including the launch of a webinar series, initial conversations with CohnReznick, the third-party accounting firm selected to develop a review process for social equity applicants, and the submission of legislative recommendations to the General Law Committee. The webinar flyers have been shared with the council and are available on the SEC site at ct.gov/Social Equity Council under News and Announcements. Interim Executive Director Clay and CohnReznick have met several times to discuss the application review process and have been joined by members of the SEC for some of those discussions. In terms of the legislative recommendations, the council suggested changes to Section 27 to update the statute to limit to 2 the number of equity joint ventures producers can create, and to require those producers to establish equity joint ventures no later than 14 months after approval. Section 145 to update the statute to limit to 2 the number of equity joint ventures dispensaries can create, and to require those dispensaries to establish equity joint ventures no later than 14 months after approval. Also, Section 148 to update the statute to eliminate the municipal cap for retailer and micro-cultivator establishments. So municipalities will have the ability to determine how many of those 2 licenses they want to allow. The council recognizes that there are concerns that cannot be acted on at this time due to the timing of the market launch in conjunction with the legislative session. These concerns include the market advantage that's granted to medical producers and dispensaries that are allowed to convert prior to the implementation of the lottery, the lack of a cap on the number of cultivator licenses issued pursuant to Section 149, and the subsequent potential for oversaturation of the market as a result, and the lack of restrictions with respect to number of applications that can be submitted to the lottery. Entities will be able to apply multiple times, thereby increasing their probability of winning. The council also received recommendations from the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy regarding the definitions of social equity applicant and disproportionately impacted area, but has requested additional information regarding the impact of those proposed language changes. We understand the challenges associated with this effort. We are all personally and painfully aware that Black and Brown communities have been marginalized from a policy perspective, and we know that shifting that paradigm requires systems change. We know that this legislation, while promising in many ways, in other ways reinforces the foundations that we aim to deconstruct. It also speaks to the critical importance of policymakers hearing from their constituents. I want to express my gratitude for the hard work of this council and to the community members who provide their input. I also want to thank the legal and drug policy teams at DCP and the staff at DECD and OPM, whose extraordinary efforts have made our progress possible. I also want to thank the CEO and staff of CT Paid Leave, who have generously offered their thought partnership in starting up a new entity as the Social Equity Council staffs up. Finally, I want to acknowledge the tremendous contributions of Melissa McCaw, who not only served as an invaluable member of this council, but also as an accomplished secretary of the Office of Policy and Management. Her guidance, insight, and acumen have been of tremendous value to this council and this state, and her contributions will be missed greatly. And I hope this council will join me in thanking her for her leadership. With that, I turn it over to Director Clay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, and distinguished council members, members of the public joining us today. I am Ginny Ray Clay, the Interim Director of the Social Equity Council, and I present the following management report. The
Ginny
office,
Ray?
yeah.
I'm sorry, before we continue, I apologize. I did want to acknowledge that Councilwoman Shaw has joined us, and I see that she has her hand up.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Clay, and thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to ensure that the minutes reflect my attendance on behalf of Treasurer Whitten. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if
Andrea,
I can interrupt,
David.
oh, go ahead, David.
Before I keep going, Andrea, I'm not seeing your camera on. I'm not sure if it's a me issue or if others can't see you as well, but you may want to swipe back and forth on the camera to see if it reloads, Andrea.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Thank you.
And if I could add one more thing, it looks like we have some members in the non-panelist portion of the meeting. I saw Dr. Kelly Valerie's Sabira Gordon, if you want to let them in or promote them to panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Clay, all yours. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Well, good morning once again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The Office of the Social Equity Council was very, very busy. We had a busy, productive, and exciting month of February. I'm going to share my screen. Paige, if you can allow me to do that, I will put up my presentation or my report. Okay.
Try again.
Yeah, okay. Can you all see the, okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So last month, I asked the council to grant me the authority to move in certain areas. As Chairman Comer mentioned, we contracted with the accounting firm of Cohn Resnick, and I do meet with them weekly. We are in the process of creating and documenting the review and verification process for social equity applicants. It's going well. Again, I do meet with them weekly, and I encourage and invite members of the council to join this meeting to weigh in and to see what the updates are. I asked also to authorize me to put out an RFP or request services of a marketing and outreach firm. I am working with the Outreach and Marketing Committee to hire a firm. We sent out pre-qualifying questions to 7 firms that are on the state master contract. We received responses from 4, and those responses will be forwarded to the committee that is being put together, and we will determine which firms we want to interview to take on a contract to market and to really set up our social media, our website, our communication. So all of our marketing and outreach that will be statewide. And I hope that we can get that done in the next couple of weeks. We really need to get out there to the entire state. We're getting really good responses from people, but I'm sure there's lots of people that we're not reaching at this point. As Chairman Comer mentioned, the legislative recommendations have been forwarded in the works. So right now, my office is working with the DECD to create a low interest loan program for cannabis businesses. And it will be those primarily for those, or initially for those who have obtained and been awarded the provisional license and ultimately the license. So the access to capital will be a broad access to capital. We understand that you can't get federal money or even apply to banks who are federally insured. And so we are creating a fund that will be helpful to cannabis business owners. In addition, we are creating a cannabis accelerator program. So we are establishing a team with DECD, DCP, and members of the Governance Council to identify a company or a group or a process for getting the accelerator up and running, and we're moving along with that one as quickly as we can as well. I wanted to bring to the attention of the council and ask for your feedback at some point. We do have planned a council retreat. I'm thinking that would be a 1 day, full day council retreat. And so we'll look to see what council members would like to have on the agenda for that and what we would like to accomplish. So I will reach out to the various committee chairs to put together an agenda, but I'd like you to think about that because we should do that retreat by the fall. And so I know we have, vacations that are coming up. So whatever is the best time for the council so that we can have maximum attendance. And as I said, I will follow up with members of the council to see what your desires are. So in February, we began hosting webinars in our efforts to answer questions, provide information to the general public on the criteria for social equity, the application process, just the whole lottery process. So I do want to give a big thank you to the Department of Consumer Protection, Deputy Commissioner and Chair Comer, who has been amazingly helpful to this process, to Rod Marriott, to Diana Shaw of the Department of Consumer Protection, who Rod has been a presenter for several of the workshops that we've held in February, and Diana has been assisting with answering questions from my team, Jennifer Edwards, Paige Rashid, and Amber Forrest, who are working diligently behind the scenes to get these webinars recorded and posted onto YouTube and to collect data that is important and to respond to questions that come up during the webinars. So you can see that we started on the first day of the opening of the application. So we had our first webinar and it was understanding the basics. We had 10 people attend that webinar. And then we went on to do the Social Equity Council Financing Your Cannabis Business. We did that webinar twice. We also did a webinar on cannabis licensing. And as you can see, we had 198 people between the two dates that we put on the webinars. So
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know if you meant to advance your slides or not, but the slides are not moving. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman O'Leary.
Oh, is it still on? Okay, I'm actually
it's still on the first slide.
Slide 4.
Okay.
So, okay. Let me stop sharing for 1 second and try that again. Can you see the slides now?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Is it advancing now?
Nothing's being shared.
Not on the
Yeah, I don't see
screen as
anything.
yet.
Okay, let's see what we can do here. Try this again.
That worked.
We're good now.
You're good? Okay. Is it in the presenter mode or is it just, did that make it go away or is it still sharing?
You're back. Well, no, it's there. You're back at the first slide. You were at slide
Okay.
4. Okay.
All right, so we went through the access to capital, and this is the slide that I was speaking from, showing that we had put on several.
That's actually the
Not
first
sharing.
slide.
Oh, no.
It's not in presenter mode. It's just showing the main screen for the PowerPoint deck.
Okay, is that working? Whew.
Looks like it's buffering.
I think if you click on each slide on the left side, you can't like just do next. You have to click on the actual slide if you're not in presenter mode.
Okay, I'm clicking on the actual slide.
Okay, you're still on the first slide then. So that didn't work. How about if you do full screen on your, like, there?
Now it's working.
That looks good.
Okay, so you can see the slide that says February.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. I apologize, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, so as you can see, again, we held several webinars during the month of February, 198 in attendance for 10, 61, 71. Questions fielded during those webinars. And I think this is why we don't have folks that are signed up today for the public speaking part, because I think we are answering their questions through our webinars and through our dedicated email. So we fielded over 300 or close to 300 questions during the course of the webinar. So 99, 51, 93, and 55. Yes, Member Shaw. You're on mute.
If you can go back to the last slide, I note the fairly dramatic increase in the number of participants in the webinars over time, and I'm just wondering if you had changed your strategy for kind of publicizing the webinars at all, or
Yeah.
if there's just word of mouth.
So we did, and I'm trying now, my slides won't even advance. So I don't know what's going on with this thing. So we did have, so the very first webinars that we did not have a very broad marketing of them. And so we started to, so the Hartford Business Journal helped with publishing and posting that we were having these. We did press releases, went out to social media. So we did increase our marketing as best we could, not having a social media platform. And so, and then word of mouth and specifically sending out emails, inviting people who were asking us questions through our email. So we collected those names and created a distribution list, and we send an email invite to those folks, as well as continuing to post on as many LinkedIn, Facebook pages, and working with the Hartford Business Journal to publish them in their digital online. And so we also ask people to share. So if you see one of them, and like I said, not sure why I can't get back to the slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, so for this one represents 198 represents two combined webinars, the 16th and the 22nd. And we tend to get more people at our lunch and learn webinars. So we try to hold them at least twice, but we do record each of the webinars and we post it, and you'll see here on the next slide. So we've got over 125 people in our distribution list that we send blast emails out to. Thank you, Jennifer, for collecting the data on those folks and getting those emails out. And we've answered over 300 questions through our dedicated email box. As I mentioned, all webinars are recorded and they are posted to our CT Equity Council YouTube page and on our Social Equity Council webpage, as well as the Department of Consumer and Protections webpage. Webinars that we have scheduled and confirmed for March application process, required documents for the application. We'll run that a couple of times to give people opportunity to interact with us. I will also be holding office hours. So you'll see that the council presents office hours for residency requirement. I will spend a lunch and learn just answering questions regarding residency. The next office hours that I have will be just answering questions on income. And the third one will be ownership. And we do have some others that we're going to be confirming presenters for. So as of last night, and I don't know if this has been updated, but as of last night, we have 8 retailer social equity retailer lottery applications submitted, 1 micro cultivator, and then in the general lottery, we have 25 retailer, 12 micro cultivator, and 5 delivery service. And I took this from the DCP website. Staffing update.
Interim Director, before you go on,
Yes.
just because we can have the slide up for the access to capital. I know you mentioned it. You mentioned something about the accelerator. If you can just go back to that slide and give us a little bit more detail. I think myself and some other council members are getting a lot of feedback from the general public. And if we can just get some further detail where you are in that process. Do we have any timelines? Will that be concluded before the end of the first lottery as it relates to DCD, your office, as well as DCP coming up with the dollar parameters of what that program may look like? I think it's been several months and the public has been waiting for that, and they continue to wait on that. So I would want that to be a high priority. And then the accelerator, just where that actually stands, we can give us some further detail in that, just to make us up to speed as council members, because we don't see those things.
Okay, so yes, we have, we're putting together, and it's pretty much put together, a subcommittee or ad hoc committee that will be looking for an operator for the accelerator program. That is not something that the council nor my staff is qualified to do. So we will put together quickly, and we hopefully by the end of this week is our plan to have the RFP drafted. There are a couple of council members who have expressed an interest in being a part, so we'll be looking at including those folks, but primarily the Department of Consumer Protection, DECD, and the Office of the Social Equity Council will be working to get the RFP out and move this accelerator program along as quickly as possible. So I believe we are talking about having it up and running sometime in early May, and to focus. And I think, Ojala, you're going to talk a little bit more about the accelerator program in your report?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Happy to, would you prefer me to wait till then?
No, you can go now if you like.
Okay, sure, yeah. So, you know, as part of kind of establishing a accelerator committee, which we've got 5 members that had sort of reached out and expressed interest, Ed Shirley, Joe Williams, Andrea Comer, David Lehman, and myself. Really, the goal right now is to help establish the criteria for the social equity cannabis accelerator, and then solicit and review RFPs for the program, and make a full recommendation to the council on who we want to move forward with. It's definitely, we're trying to move as fast as we can. You know, I think we'll want to vote later when we do a governance committee update on our RFP piece in particular. But I think, you know, May might be stretching it. I think it's going to take us about a month and a half, but our goal is to come back with some sort of recommendation, hopefully in April, on which direction we want to move with for an accelerator operator.
Thanks for that update.
Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. Has the RFP for the accelerator been shared with members
It
of the
hasn't been
council
developed
beyond?
yet, so that's part of the committee's responsibility, and will be sort of developed over the next week or 2.
Okay, and will it be shared with the council before it's released to the public?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving along with the staffing update, we have received confirmation that Attorney Kamla Matrivi will join the Office of the Social Equity Council on March 7th. I'm in touch with him to give him the warning of he better be ready to hit the ground running, but we are very excited to have him join us next week. I will be just received a list of qualified administrative assistants that meet the DAS qualifications or our qualifications. So I will be convening a interview panel, and there's 8 finalists, and I will interview all 8 and get that person on hopefully by the end of March, having to provide 2 weeks notice and at least 2 days for interviews because of scheduling. The communications and legislative manager position, we have an offer out to a candidate, and we are waiting on that confirmation and the background check or reference checks. Associate accountant, it has been finalized, and it is with the Office of Equal Opportunities. And once they review it, then we will be able to post it to the public and look for that position to be filled. The fiscal administrative officer is still in the process of being approved. The brand director as well is in the process of being approved. And we are working on the qualifications for a position that will sit in the Office of Workforce Strategies called the Cannabis Workforce Development Manager. To move this process along, because we do have a couple of, key positions that we need to hire, I have now scheduled a weekly meeting with the Department of Administrative Services to make sure that we are all on the same page and moving these hires through as soon as possible without any further delays. Okay, on the finance, legal, and legislative front, our fiscal year 22-23, so our fiscal year 22 budget was adjusted and submitted to OPM, and our fiscal 23 budget that was proposed, I should change that, it has been approved by OPM. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Secretary McCaw, who was so helpful and so instrumental in helping us to craft the budget that I think is going to be very beneficial to the cannabis industry. So many, many thanks to her and her team for their efforts and working with us to create this, to adjust this budget and to create our first budget. Under our legal, our attorney will be joining us. One of the very first things that we will be having him do is to begin to draft the policy, procedures, and bylaws for the office, and to take up several other issues that we have on the rise. We did have a meeting with Assistant Attorney General Christine Jean-Louis, and she clarified some things. All council members received a copy of the memo that she wrote regarding the SEC roles and responsibilities. Legislative extension letter, that I should have taken that off, but our legislative proposals have been submitted, and we are waiting to hear back from the legislature if they would like to speak with us about any of those, and I'm sure that they will. And we look forward to meeting with them and answering any questions and boasting about our progress. So that concludes my report. I thank you all. I thank the council for their cooperation. And if anyone has any additional questions, I'm happy to answer. Yes,
Councilwoman Shaw. Councilwoman Shaw, you want to go, and then Councilman Williams.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Clay, if you can go back to your slide where you summarized the status of finance matters. Just to be clear, my understanding is that the proposed adjustments to the fiscal year 2023 budget were submitted to OPM in time for inclusion in the broader set of adjustments that are part of the governor's proposed budget. I don't think it's been approved yet, and I don't think it will be approved until the legislature votes on it.
Right. Not okay. Yeah, I meant approved by OPM to go forward.
Right. So there is and I'll comment on this when. Well, I'll just finish the thought that the legislature will evaluate the proposed changes, and there likely will be questions. I'm sure there will be an invitation for someone from the council to address the legislature to explain some of the aspects of our proposed adjustments. So I just wanted to make sure the council was aware that it is not yet approved.
Okay, I will adjust the slide and
Okay,
just say it's submitted.
I'm
Thank
sorry. And Paige, can you change the status of Nat McLaughlin? He is with OPM and he is currently as an attendee, just in case he had additional context he wanted to share. And if not, then I will move to Councilman Williams.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Interim Director Clay, for that report. Just one observation, going back to the budget aspect of line item dealing with access to capital. I do believe in the adjusted budget for this fiscal year 22, there's $1 million. And in the proposed budget for 23, there's $2 million. And I do believe, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is the accelerator dollars coming out of that portion to oversee the accelerator? Or is that something separate?
No, it is. You are correct. It is coming out of, oh, let me stop sharing my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so the accelerator, so marketing and outreach has a separate line. Technical assistance, which will include the accelerator, that is the $1 million. And our marketing and outreach has a line budget of $800,000.
And have we expended any of that expenditures so far on the TA side for this?
We have, no, which is why we're doing the webinars. The money is not available to us yet. So we are doing webinars on our own until those funds are available.
And also, do we know, I know we're in talks now with DECD and Commissioner Lehman and DCP, when it comes down to access to capital, what are the dollar parameters that we're thinking about putting in that, or possibly do we need to bond for that? And when possibly will that possibly be available? Will it be in time for right after the ending of the first social equity lottery participants, which will be in May? And then it'll kick in June, which will then probably not be to the new fiscal year of 2023.
So it is bond funding. I am working, meet weekly with the DECD staff to put this together. And Nat can actually hopefully add a little bit more context, because I have just reached out to him to talk about the next steps in accessing. It is $50 million. We will not, all of that is not just for access to capital, it's for a couple of other items. But I think we're looking at right now about $10 million for the first request for the low interest loans.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Ginny, Executive Director Ginny Ray said it exactly right. I think there's a $50 million bond authorization. We have to take that under review. That would have to go through a bond commission, just like all other bond authorizations. And so as the plan for that money is developed, that will need to be fed over to OPM, and we will need to review it and incorporate it as appropriate.
So we can anticipate this follow-up to you. That is more, we're looking for really fiscal year 23, like more in July, just so those that, for the audience and the public will understand that, yes, we are working on a program, but realistically, the time frame is somewhere early summer.
Yeah, and it also depends on when the bond commission meets. We're starting now to put all the paperwork together to make the request, to finalize the details to the program, so that we can have it on the bond agenda. So when the bond commission meets, we're there and we're ready.
If I could just clarify, it's my understanding, and I'm going to direct this to Mr. McLaughlin for confirmation, that there are discretionary funds available to the Secretary of OPM available for this purpose, for some of the technical assistance and accelerator purposes. Is that correct? And that would be for this fiscal year before July of 2022, which is the beginning of the 23 fiscal year.
Councilwoman Shaw, to the extent that I can answer that question, I think The answer is that we've reflected a deficiency through OPM for the budgeted expenses of the council, which includes technical assistance and training. This access to capital is kind of a separate question. And that in the bill has a $50 million bond authorization. And so that's kind of the process we would pursue with that.
So the capital itself is part of the bonding, but the assistance about accessing the capital, that's something that is in the current budget.
Technical assistance is in the current budget.
Okay,
Correct.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, additional questions? Councilman Shirley. You're on mute, Councilman Shirley.
Thank you. I think question for Mr. McLaughlin. How was the $50 million arrived at? Was that a comparison to what other states have done? Was there some, algebraic formula? Just wondering how we got there.
I do not have the background on that specific number. I'm happy to take that question back and see what the drafters of the legislation were thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that number was included in the language of the legislation itself. So, but I'm hoping that there was some sort of science behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you, Director Clay.
Thank you.
At this point, we will move on to committee reports. First on the agenda is the Outreach Committee, Councilwomen Alverio and Gordon.
Oh, there I am. Sorry. So the Marketing and Outreach Committee did not meet in February. Both Sabira and I were doing some extensive traveling, and the day that our scheduled meeting was a holiday, so it had to get moved. And so we did not have a meeting in February, but we have been working with Ginny on the SOW and creating the SOW for the marketing and outreach agency that we plan on hiring. So we went back and forth and kind of sending out some initial questions before we invited folks to do the SOW to make sure that those people that were responding did have experience within diverse communities. That was very, very important to us to have capabilities, bilingual, bicultural capabilities within their staff is something that is also important to us, as well as the experience in working with diverse communities. And so those questionnaires are now back. Ginny received 4, as she mentioned. I think the last one came in on Thursday, right, Ginny? I think the last one came in on Thursday. So that is what we will be working on this month, to kind of review all of that and make recommendations to Ginny for hiring. So hopefully by next month, we will have someone on board. And that will include the website, the PR, the media, I mean, all kinds of just everything, and building out the strategic plan. We did provide an overall strategic plan to our group, but we do want to make sure that we have the detailed plan that we can present to the board. So hopefully by next month, we will have someone on board, and that's a good thing. Sabira, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's 100% correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Seeing no questions, I now move to the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Shaw.
Good morning once again, everyone. The Finance Committee has accomplished its first major task, and recommending or working with the interim executive director, our board chair, and OPM secretary McClaw, as well as the other committee members, in finalizing the proposed adjustments for the fiscal year 2023 budget. As was mentioned before and in previous meetings, before this council began its work, there already was a budget in place for both years of the biennium. And so the task before us was to offer adjustments to the figures that were assumed for the second half of the biennium, in which reflected the deliberations of this council and the preliminary work that's been done, and our best estimates on what changes needed to be made and what resources were necessary in order to carry out the council's work for next year. So all of that information has been submitted. I suspect that the request from the legislature will be directed to the council through the chair, to the extent that there is any request for information about our assumptions underlying the increases, particularly as it relates to the technical assistance piece. There may be some questions about workforce development. So the Finance Committee will work with the chair and dispatch those questions to the appropriate chairs as necessary, but it is a short session. The public hearing season is, I think we're in the middle of it or at the beginning of it, and it's a very short period of time. I know there are folks on this council who are dialed into that legislative timeline, but that is all that I have to report today.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shaw. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, moving on to our Governance Committee Chair, Councilwoman Naeem.
Thank you. So we had a government committee meeting last week and went through a couple of key things. First is the executive director's evaluation process. So we'll be kicking off the process on April 1st with a 360-degree evaluation, which will be sent to all council members. The 2022 social equity work plan, which was shared with many of you previously. Chairwoman Comer had shared that out for review, has been updated. We've assigned sort of key dates and key tasks for the interim executive director to sort of measure up against. And so those that work plan will be used as a sort of guide and should be considered when conducting the review. Council members will have 2 weeks to complete the evaluation once it's been shared out. And then the governance committee will then use executive session of the committee to review any feedback and make a full recommendation to the full council in the May council meeting. A lot packed in there. I'll pause if there's questions specific to that. Councilwoman Shaw.
Thank you. What do you anticipate the recommendation to be? Is it a recommendation regarding the performance or of the current interim executive director, or is there a process anticipated for the permanent appointment by this council?
The recommendation is to make a permanent appointment from this council for this council.
And has the governance committee solicited comments on the process for how that recommendation of a formal or final appointment is made?
That's what we're walking through today.
Okay, so might I suggest, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate for an open meeting, because the questions I have relate to process and not the individual who's in the current role. One of the specific responsibilities of the council is the appointment of a permanent executive director. And we know that this council began its work with the governor's appointment of an interim executive director. And so I'm not sure if evaluation of an interim executive director is the same as an evaluation of who should fill that position permanently. In other words, performance is one thing, but just understanding, you know, the range of background and experiences and other suitable candidates, I think that is a process that is more correlated to the decision as to who should serve in that role permanently, rather than the evaluation of an interim candidate.
You know, and feel free to, you know, anyone that has clarity on this to jump in. But I don't think there was anything from a legislative perspective that required us to kind of reopen up, you know, the application process for the role. And I think when we discussed this previously, which was about 4 months ago now, we discussed a review and permanent appointment back in October. We had talked about the challenges with going through a broader search while we're in the midst of the lottery process and really getting everything established, and being able to manage that. So I'd love to hear from other council members, you know, their thoughts and reactions to what Councilwoman Shaw has shared out.
So seeing none, I will just, and I'm certainly open to alternate processes. My understanding was that, again, based on what Councilwoman Naeem just laid out, that we would be evaluating the interim executive director and making a determination around permanency in that regard. And if not, I don't see any reason why those two processes, if you're suggesting, Councilwoman Shaw, that they should be separate, that they cannot run parallel.
I'm just suggesting that there be a process, and if it's the intention of this council to affirm the governor's appointment through the evaluation process, then then that's the council's direction. But I look at the language of the legislation, and we've had advice on what the core responsibilities of this council are. And one of them is the what I think ought to be an independent due diligence process over the appointment of a permanent executive director. And this council never did that. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's, you know, we've inherited and you know, and I wanted to say, with all due respect to Ms. Clay, I'm really focused on process and not performance at this point. So the process does require that there be an evaluation. And I think if this council is satisfied that reviewing performance of an interim executive director without consideration of other applications or other resumes, even in a cursory fashion, if that's what this council is satisfied with, then so be it. But that is not, in my mind, in keeping with what the legislation has, you know, set out as an explicit responsibility for this council.
Councilman Lehman?
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to weigh in here, in my mind, and to Councilwoman Shaw's point, I'm not sure I don't view there to be two discrete processes. I do agree with Councilwoman Shaw's point that this group, the council, you know, shall appoint an executive director, and the governor did appoint an interim executive director. In my mind, though, we're all learning to a certain extent as we go here in terms of what are the needs of the council, what are we trying to accomplish, timeline. So the way I think about this is there should be an evaluation of Ginny Ray in that interim role, and pending that evaluation, you know, what's working, what's not working, what changes do we need to have. The outcome of that is going to be either an embrace of Ginny as potentially a non-interim executive director, but fulfilling the role permanently, or on a non-interim basis. Permanent is probably not the right word. Or if we feel like that isn't working, then we can take in new resumes and potentially go in a different direction. But in my mind, you know, the first step in that process is the evaluation of Ginny and the role that she's doing on behalf of this group right now.
And so I do see Councilwoman Alvario's hands up, and I am going to allow her to speak, but I also want to just name for this council that if we are going to continue this conversation, it is probably best done in executive session. Councilwoman Alvario.
I just wanted to echo Councilwoman Shaw's concern regarding process. And I just wanted to verbalize that I think that they are two separate issues here. Evaluation is certainly called for, but also that we should have a process in place of, how we went about doing this. That's it.
Thank you,
Madam
Councilwoman
Chair?
Alvarado. Yes, Councilman Jefferson.
Yeah, I appreciate the language of the statute, and I see where Councilwoman Shaw is coming from. I do. I just don't know the alternative. No one has presented a healthy alternative for us to consider. I think the interim executive director has to be evaluated at this point, and and we need a permanent director at some point. So I support the process. Until someone comes up with a healthy alternative, I don't think we have much of a choice. We need to put this matter behind us and move on. We got bigger fish to fry. This 90-day window is closing fast, and we're going to have some other concerns on our plate. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson.
Madam Chairwoman, would it be possible for us to, time permitting, jump into an executive session at the end to further discuss this?
Yes, I think that would
Great.
make sense. Thank
So
you.
we will put that on hold, and I will continue on the governance updates. The second sort of key area that we talked about was attendance policy. So recommendation is that note be taken of council members who miss 2 out of 3 Social Equity Council meetings. The chair will then have a discussion with the appointing party for that individual's seat on addressing the attendance issues or appointing a new member. Council member attendance will be reviewed at public meetings in June and December. So we'll sort of touch on, here's been the attendance for the last 6 months of all of the council members and who has attended and who has missed, at least 2 out of 3 meetings. Not sure if we need a vote on that process. I think that kind of aligns with the legislature. Obviously, we as a council do not have appointing authority, but I think it's really important that all council members that have been appointed, they've been appointed to represent their communities, and their insights and knowledge are incredibly important. So to ensure that we've got continued quorum, and then also making sure that we're covering, representation from across different backgrounds, it is pretty important that, unless there's a major personal challenge, that folks are attending and not missing, 2 out of 3 meetings.
I just want to say thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Councilwoman Lang.
I don't think we need to vote on that, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm with you.
I don't believe so, unless there are council members that would like it memorialized as such. Councilwoman Valeries? I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Naeem. I just had a question with regards to designees. So would you mark someone as absent if they had a designee in their place?
No, designee is totally okay.
Thank you for clarification.
Councilwoman Alverio, were you gonna?
I just wanted to, you said memorialize, I just would like it to be a little bit more formalized in terms of what the action is and what our policy is going to be in terms of attendance.
Sure. I can try to reframe that as a formal motion on the table. So motion is that council members who miss 2 out of 3 council meetings will then be addressed with their appointing party through the Social Equity Council chair. And then council member attendance will be reviewed at public meetings in June and December.
May I have a second? I see several hands. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, so you basically will review the attendance of these individuals with their appointed authority. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. We can't basically do anything else. I mean, that's
exactly right.
all right.
Just
And I
another
think,
point. Sorry, Councilman Naeem, just another point of just clarification. So if they miss 2 out of 3, you're saying that's when they get reviewed, whether they're going to continue on, or is there like a warning, like if this continues, then you'll be reviewed and possibly removed? Just how is that process going to?
I think based on what we've recommended, it's once you miss 2 out of 3, Chairwoman has the ability to go speak to the appointing party. Chances are that appointing party will have a conversation with whoever has missed the meeting to make a determination of, can they continue serving in that role, or do they need to, appoint someone else?
Thank you again.
Councilwoman Alverio.
Councilwoman Naeem, and is that retroactive, or is that effective at a certain date? I mean, we're already 10 months in.
Since we're voting on it today, I'd say it's effective today's meeting.
Thank you.
We should consider a change in the legislative language moving forward. Not that has to be part of this recommendation, but that's the only way you're going to bring some teeth to it, because you can't control the appointing authority's power.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know if they'd be open to changing how appointments are made, quite frankly, but I think part of the rationale behind kind of putting out and calling out publicly in June and December is that the public holds people accountable, right? We're here to serve the public while we're being appointed by different folks across government parties. We are also here to serve the public. So I think, that's one thing I'd ask the executive director to make sure in kind of our kickoff at the June and December meetings that we are doing sort of a attendance call out. I don't think it requires discussion from this council. We're not the arbitrators on, who's attending, why or why not, but public should hold folks accountable.
Councilman Shirley.
Just for clarification, does that include committee meetings as well as council meetings?
That is right now just strictly for council meetings.
Okay.
Councilwoman Shaw.
Thank you. Just curious to know where the 2 out of 3 standard was pulled from.
I believe that we had seen that used in other sort of commission board meetings and was sort of the agreed upon consensus within the governance committee. Do you have a different standard in mind?
Well, I'm just thinking of just the practical applications of it, like if it would be a rolling, so if someone missed 2 meetings and then they were present for 2, then the clock sets again, or
once they miss
is it
2
2 out
meetings,
of
it's
3?
yeah.
So it's 2 is over the course of a year. It sounds like it's a shorter period of time.
Shorter
So
period
within
of
a
time. So
Mhm.
yep. So it would be 2 literally within 3 months. If you're missing 2 months out of 3 months, that's almost that is a quarter. And as you know, this council does a lot of work in a short amount of time. So if you've missed 2 meetings in a row, you've probably missed out on a lot.
Mhm.
Councilman Alverio.
Question though.
Thank you. Is there any way we could amend that to include committee meetings? That's where all the work is done. A lot of work is done. And that's really quite critical that we have attendance in those meetings so that we can get the right kind of representation that we need to make the right kind of decisions.
We can, I would put it up for discussion. My only concern there is sometimes committee meetings are done as a special meeting because of a need, and it can be challenging if it's scheduled 2 days ahead of the meeting date. So I do want to be respectful of that. But I think if we looked at it as committee meetings that are set and scheduled for the year, which all committees have schedules,
Right.
I think that's fair. So I would just say let's not include special meetings on that, because there are times that happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the regular meetings, if someone has not attended a subcommittee meeting at all, then that's a concern.
So just as a point of order, there is a motion on the floor and it has been seconded. So in order to add the committee meetings, we would need to rescind that motion and reissue with the additional language around committee meetings.
Can't we just make an amendment to that motion though?
I think only because it's been motioned and seconded.
Okay.
Can I just address Councilwoman Gordon's question and then I'll rescind and Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm not sure if I missed this. I've been on another call off and on here. Did we discuss the fact that like medical exemptions or anything, like I sit on multiple other boards, and what happens is like the council decides, or there is a process to determine which, like what's an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. And I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up, like, I mean, if someone has a kid, right? Like they're probably going to be out for 3 months. Not going to be me. I'm just like, not putting that in the atmosphere. I'm just saying, if someone were to have a child and they were out for 3 months, I don't think that would then mean that they would be kicked off the council. I just wanted to flag that as possible.
I personally appreciate that because I am due next month. So that is a possibility. But I think, what we did say was we recognize that there may be personal circumstances. So those will be reviewed. And again, we're not making a decision on if someone comes off the, council or appointment changes. That still resides with the appointing body. And I would, ensure that Chairwoman Comer is having some sort of insights on why people are not showing up and having a discussion with the appointing party on that. So I don't know if we need to formalize that because again, we don't have the authority to make the appointment or to take any action on the appointment. But I would assume that folks are having that discussion and trying to, work through any personal challenges, medical challenges, and so on. Sorry, my boxes are moving a lot with all these hands up. Councilman Jefferson?
Yeah, if we're gonna add that friendly amendment concerning committee meetings, then I think we have to, I don't think it should be in stone. I think the chairwoman should make it optional. I think she has to, be in a position to speak to that particular council person to determine what's going on before taking that next step and speaking with his or her appointed authority. For them to just go, we make it automatic that if you miss 2 out of 3 and you miss these committee meetings, she goes directly to the appointed authority. I agree with Sabira. I think we should tread a little lightly here.
Yes,
Sure.
and that certainly wouldn't be my.
No, I know. I just don't want you to be, basic. Let's be clear about what we're asking you to do. So you're not put in a position that you're not comfortable with.
Appreciate that.
I will address that in my once I rescind the motion on the table. Councilman Gaddis.
Listen, I have no interest in policing professionals. I just don't. I think we're going down a deep rabbit hole with all this stuff. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not going to vote on any motion that includes committees. Folks, people have personal issues. I don't think our council should conflict with their professional responsibilities. If they have a legitimate excuse why they don't come to the meeting, that's on them. I do think some people are missing meetings, and I did support this in governance, and I still support some guardrails, but I just think the dialogue and the policing is getting a little crazy. I want to focus on the business of establishing a cannabis industry for adults in Connecticut. I don't want to keep coming to these meetings looking inwardly, policing ourselves with other professionals. And I'm not going to continue to do that anymore. We're wasting a lot of time.
I appreciate that. And again, our part of our responsibility is making sure that we're holding any kind of public accountability for ourselves and others too. So it's a little bit of a reminder, but
through you, Madam Chairwoman, it is March and we had months to work on all this internal stuff. I mean, really, we got to stop and pivot and get to the business that we're here for. All this internal stuff, it's internal stuff. Pick up the phone and call someone.
Through you, Madam Chairwoman Naeem, Councilman Gaddis, I certainly understand, and I do not have an appetite to police anyone. That said, we are a 15-member body. There are members that, speaking plainly, have been missing in action. I think it is unfair to the other members of the council who, all of whom are busy, all of whom have tremendous amounts on their plates, but who are making the commitment to this initiative to show up and be present, should not have to bear the brunt of the work for members who I'm not going to assume their intentions, but have not been present for any of the work. So I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I agree with you that we don't want to go down a rabbit hole necessarily, but I do think that it's important for us to hold each other accountable, just as the public will be holding us accountable. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any more hands, so I will rescind the original motion that I made and would like to make a motion that the note will be taken of council members who missed 2 out of 3 Social Equity Council meetings or committee meetings to the committees that they are assigned to, regularly scheduled. The Social Equity Council chair will then have a discussion with the council member, and based on the conversation, the appointing party for that individual seat on addressing the attendance issues or appointing a new member. Council member attendance will be reviewed at public meetings in June and December.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, third kind of follow-up that came out of the governance committee. Again, this was just sort of a clarification. Last council meeting, we voted to give the interim executive director authority to make hiring decisions. Just the kind of clarification around that was that isn't a blanket authority if there is a change in who serves in the executive director role, and that the council will have the opportunity to revoke authorization to make hiring decisions if needed. Any questions on that? Okay, and then finally, we did touch upon the Accelerator Committee earlier during the executive director's report. We are, coming in, we're looking for a vote to approve the Accelerator Ad Hoc Committee to develop and put out an RFP in partnership with DECD and DCP. Kind of taking in the discussion from earlier today, we would share the RFP with the council via email to capture any questions, comments, or concerns, but in an effort to get the RFP out in a timely manner so that we can have a program up and running early summer, we'd like to have the sort of kind of okay to move forward on the RFP process. Questions around that before I make any kind of formal motion? Yep, Councilwoman Cho.
So it strikes me that this is such an important part of ensuring that there are the right resources available to social equity applicants, and really ensuring that they have the resources necessary to submit viable applications for licenses. So it just seems to me so central to our work that I, for one, would like to see the RFP before it goes out. More than not just see it, but have an opportunity to comment on it. I think it should be made available to the public before it hits the street. In other words, that we have an opportunity to shape it. One of the kind of subtext of conversations, or the common theme of conversations I've had with other council members over the last several months has been, how are these joint ventures going to look? How is it that what are the possible types of structures that we are likely to see, and what kind of supports will be necessary to ensure that the right people get to advance their applications? And, you know, I've had the benefit of some extended conversations with, I'll just point out Mr. Shirley, who has a lot of experience in evaluating, you know, investment opportunities. And so when we're put in the position of determining what resources will be necessary to help social applicants, it has been useful to put on the hat that some of us wear in evaluating kind of proposals and business plans. And so I just think that, you know, I think that the composition of the committee that you've described is excellent. I have a lot of respect for all the members of this council. I would, though, like for the opportunity to weigh in more directly.
Sure, and I just want to clarify that this is not meant to be an accelerator for applicants. It's meant to be an accelerator for those that have received provisional licenses. They would go through the program afterwards during that 14-month period that they have to, you know, establish their businesses. So it's really to say, great, you've been granted a license. Let us help you really figure out the best, you know, what you need to do to be business ready and to be able to launch and grow your business. And again, I agree. I mean, we want to make sure that beyond just the committee members have an opportunity to view and review the RFP and sort of what we're looking to entail in it. It will not be heavily specific. Our intention is that, you know, part of the RFP process is we're looking at firms that have worked with both social equity applicants previously, as well as broader cannabis businesses. So they have expertise beyond, I think, any of us, because they've worked in the industry, and we're looking for their recommendations on what's most needed on you know, these types of businesses and the support that these types of businesses need. So again, you know, I just want to clarify, our goal is to have a RFP worked on as a committee and then shared with the full council. We can definitely, you know, set a certain amount of time that we'll give the council to review it, give us feedback. And if it merits further discussion, you know, we can schedule a further meeting. But I do want to be careful on how I'd like to avoid waiting until April to have that discussion, because we're pushing ourselves out on getting the program, even the RFP out, to understand what's out there.
How about inviting members of the council to the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be great.
Councilor Naeem,
Yes.
I know you mentioned DCP, I know you mentioned DECD. I haven't heard in this discussion of Connect Innovations or CT Next or any of the actual accelerators that are already that I deal with on a daily basis that have been brought into it. If we're really trying to,
so we are having conversations with them. I just want to clarify that DECD and DCP are specifically listed out in the legislation as needing to be engaged on the accelerator process, which is why I mentioned them. But we have had and are continuing to have conversations with CT Next, CI. Again, none of them are accelerator programs themselves. They run programs across the state. They fund programs across the state, which is not too different than what we're looking to do right now. So we're making sure, and I think, you know, when you look at the composition of the committee and the connectivity that committee members have, we're trying our best to make sure that we have our hands in all of those areas. Additionally, I think DECD has a direct connection, and I know Councilman Lehman serves on the board of CI. So we've got those insights there, and as well as connectivity to make sure that we're understanding how this accelerator would fit in the broader innovation ecosystem. Further questions? So I'd like to make a motion to have the Accelerator Ad Hoc Committee develop and put out the RFP for an accelerator program in partnership with DECD and DCP. And those meetings will be open to non-members to attend as well.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Thank you, Councilwoman Naeem. And last but certainly not least, Councilwoman Valerie's with our Workforce Committee update.
Thank you, Chair Comer. The committee did meet last month and we reviewed the job description for the Cannabis Workforce Development Manager. I'm happy to share that job description with any of you as we move forward to posting that position. And the goal would be to bring someone on in the April timeframe. And that was the extent of our meeting.
I have a question. Council, what exactly will that person, what is the job description? What will that person be doing? I'm a little lost.
Sure. So that person will be working to develop cannabis-specific job training programs that are needed to upskill people into the jobs that will be in demand. And so there's kind of a twofold. There will be working with the new licensees to understand the workforce that they will need in order to launch and grow their businesses, making sure that we're working with our educational partners to build curriculum and programs that meet the skill sets that are going to be required to fill those jobs, and then to be working to attract people seeking to work in the cannabis industry into those jobs. So there's quite a bit of work to be done to determine demand and skill set, to develop programs, and then to recruit people into those jobs. And then the secondarily, there will be a focus on the equity aspect of people who have been most affected by the war on drugs, who have been unemployed or underemployed, and their ability to gain access to training programs and employment, whether that be in the cannabis industry or outside of the cannabis industry, should they choose not to want to participate directly in that industry. So making sure that we're identifying those people, providing the supports that are necessary to bring them into these training programs and into employment.
Thank you.
And this is a durational position as well.
Dr. Valerius, question about that. There's a pretty wide range of jobs, I think, associated with the various licenses. And there are people who will be transporting things, people will be measuring things. And so will there be, in addition to handling the cannabis itself, so are we providing training for all those areas?
Yes, we are. So we have looked at what other states are doing and what national programs have been put in place virtually. And so we're looking at what programs are going to be, adopted in Connecticut and utilized as they are, if they're remote courses that we can access. And we're also working with program providers for in-house programming, in-person programming for all the different levels of workers in that industry, including such as, delivery and logistics, all the way down to what would be a bud tender or a cultivator.
Thank you.
Doctor, can you also include in that position, I think this position and what the work of the Accelerator will do would really work hand in hand, because when you're dealing with the actual social equity applicants, they do have to hire people. And I think that should be a coordinated effort with that position within the Accelerator. That is a model throughout the country right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Williams. We will review the job description and ensure that's included. You're on mute, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Valories. And my apologies to Councilman Shirley. My laptop has just had a meltdown, so I'm on my phone and I couldn't see the agenda. So now,
thank you, Chairwoman. Well, as you know, we met, the policy committee met on the 17th. In fact, we met twice, at 10 and then again at 11 to share with the council those proposals which had been gathered. Thank you to Councilman Jefferson for that work, along with Director Clay and Chairperson Comer. That work has been very thoroughly summarized at the beginning of this meeting by our chairperson. So unless there's some questions about that, I think we've already covered it.
I thought that's why you skipped it, Madam Chair.
Me too.
No, it was definitely an oversight on my part. Like I said, I have no idea what happened. My laptop started screaming and then it just went black. So
I was not offended. Thank you.
thank you so much. I appreciate your grace. Okay. I think, I know at the start of this, we did not have any public sign up, just double checking with Paige that is still the case.
That is correct.
All righty. Well, hearing no public comment, I will entertain a motion to adjourn with my thanks to the council.
We must be doing something right. No public sign up. That's
Actually, there was discussion about an executive session, so I think we would have to.
Yes, you're right.
move-
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shaw.
So
So we need a motion to go into an executive session. So if I can have that motion.
I move that we move to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters.
Second.
Great, and we will return after that executive session to close out. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All righty. Paige, will you handle that for us? Or do we need another Zoom link, or will you just remove the attendees?
We might be able to do a breakout.
Oh, okay.
No, we don't have the breakout feature, I don't think. So do we want to come back to public session at all, or?
Yes,
We
we'll
have
need,
to.
Okay, in which case, how about I send everyone a Teams link right now and we'll go over to that.
very
Okay,
good, thank you.
Okay, barely a moment.
So should we leave this room?
Ye-
The link?
Yes, you can leave and then I guess click to return to it. And just
Okay.
Paige, just for clarification, the executive session should be the members of the council only.
Right.
See if I got some on the page.
Just adding the extras, and it just went out to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't see anything.
So Paige, this will be another email.
What I just did was I created an Outlook invite that will have a new meeting link in
Here
it.
it is. Okay.
It's rolling into everybody. Please let me know if you didn't get it. I'm going to stay here on the public meeting, and I'll see you in a little while.
Okay, something just came in. All right, got it.
I see the people that haven't gotten it yet are
Is that
outside of our
data?
system.
Pictures
Oh,
of
oh.
companies that are close
Paige,
to
are we
that.
supposed to close out of the Zoom meeting?
Yes, please. And you can come back after.
You have the ability
the
to,
Teams meeting.
you have the ability to stay.
Marilyn?
and vote. Yeah.
Marilyn, you'll need to,
Yes.
you'll need to close out of this meeting and go to the Teams meeting.
Yeah, I thought I just closed out.
No, you're still on the Zoom meeting. You can close Zoom.
Okay. Let me try to get out of that one. I don't see that. Okay, maybe I'm on a different.
Hi, Paige. It's Nat McLaughlin. Just wanted to flag that you're off mute.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, let us, I'll let you kind of kick us back off and then. You're on mute if you're talking, I can't.
I'm wondering if people are going back to the Teams link.
Where are we missing?
I don't know, do we, actually, I should preempt that because, okay, is everybody here?
I think we're missing one.
There are people and
Yeah, people
attendees
stuck.
who should be panelists.
Yeah.
Ed Shirley, I don't see.
Yep.
I see Ed.
I think that's it though.
Ed's in as a panelist. I think you just need, or as a attendee.
Here's Christine.
I'm still on my phone, so just let me know when, because I
Right. We've got Christine and Ed.
Yeah, Christine's there.
I think that's
Thank you.
everyone.
That's everyone?
I'm probably.
Yeah, I think
waiting
Sabira
for
had to
Maria.
jump off.
All righty, so then I will call this meeting back to order. And we'll hand it over to Chairwoman Naeem for a motion.
Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the interim executive director evaluation process, which is as follows. The process will kick off on April 1st with a 360-degree evaluation sent to all council members. The 2022 SEC work plan should be considered when conducting the review. Council members will have 2 weeks to complete the evaluation. The governance committee will then use executive session of the committee to review the feedback through the 360 review and make a recommendation to the full council at the May Social Equity Council meeting on both the feedback that was received as well as if the interim executive director should be made into a permanent executive director.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'm sorry? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Is there any other business or motions before we adjourn? Okay. If you're raising your hand, just know that I can't see you because. All righty, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Great, thank you all so very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.